Greetings guys and welcome to the first video of my how to make series, and this first video is going to be about how to make the mini network logo belt. Now I have done a review of this belt, and if you'd like to see it, I'm placing a link over here. And without further ado, let's dive in on how to make this belt. First, we will talk about the materials that you will need. First in our list are the tools that we are going to use in crafting this belt. So we have a cutting mat, our cutting tools, our measuring tools, pens, pencils, and don't forget your adhesive. Next, for our plates, we are going to use cardboard, but we are not going to use a new one because I have a lot of scrap which I had from my previous projects. For coloring the plates, I'm going to use spray paint, but you could also use those brushed on paints. Substitute these paints, you can also use foil. And lastly, to make our belt more prestigious, we are going to use these acrylic plastic stones. Now for the strap, we are going to use a fall leather cloth, and we are going to use craft foam to give it more thickness. Lastly, we are going to use these metal snaps to fasten our belt. Let us now proceed on how to make the belt. The first thing to do when making a belt is to make a template for your plates. You could either draw this or use your preferred software. Since I already have created a larger belt before, I already had one, and I just pasted this on cardboard. After drying, the next step is to cut out the plates. Now after everything has been cut, we are left with something like this. You can see the components for the main plate, the side plates, and the sidebars. The next step in the process is to glue all these plates together to achieve the desired thickness. One step is to make adjustments immediately. Making adjustments later on will be harder. Now we just have to match the sides, wipe off the excess glue, and wait for the glue to dry. If you have noticed, I have not glued all the parts immediately. This is due to the plates or the parts having different colors, or the part having a different color underneath. In this case, it's black and gold. Now, after everything that can be glued has been glued, and after everything has dried, we now start with the painting process. Now, I forgot to shoot a footage of when I was painting. But basically, you just have to apply a basic color, the primer, and then apply the actual color above it. After, you just wait for them to dry. I let them dry about a day or so. And we have this. You can see this is the part where not painting it all together pays off. I have applied this black construction paper above these plates, and then we have this final layer that will go on top. I find this much easier than gluing it all together and then painting it afterwards. Now we are ready to glue everything together, wait for them to dry, and then start on with the next process. This next step will take up a lot of patience. I mean, a real lot of patience. Because what we're doing is we are gluing these stones individually, one by one, into the plates. One tip I have during this process is to use tweezers, because the stones are really small and they cannot be glued by hand alone. And then you take a separate sheet of paper, place your glue on that, and then take the stone and dab it on glue, and then place it on the plates. I find this much cleaner than applying it directly on the plate and then having glue spill over. Now begins the process of gluing all these stones, maybe hundreds of them, into the plates. Now, we need to fill these spaces with acrylic stones. These are some of the types of stones which I will be using for this belt. After all these steps are done, congratulations to you, because we are almost done with the plate at least. Now all we have to do is to place these post screws onto the plates, and it is up to you on how many screws that you would use. Just make sure that the plates don't move around on the strap when it is done. Now you can glue the plates directly onto the strap with maybe contact cement or something similar, but I won't recommend it because it is not a strong connection. I use these post screws or Chicago screws instead. Basically, these act as receivers for the screws, which will hold the plates onto the strap. And there you have it. Those were the steps in making the plates for the belt. Now we move on to the next component of the belt, the strap. To begin, we have another template for the strap. A template is important so that every part will be consistent. And then we take our craft foam, place our template over it, and then trace it using a pen. For this, I am using a silver pen because it stands out over the black of the foam. Don't worry over the silver marks on the foam because it will be covered by our faux leather in a short while. Now, what needs to be done is to cut out the foam, cut out the leather, and then use a flexible adhesive to bind these two. The use of flexible adhesive is important because it will ensure that your strap is still flexible, unlike other glues that will dry hard. For this purpose, I recommend the use of contact cement or any other flexible adhesives that you can find. After all these are done, we have a final product that, hopefully, looks like a strap. As you can see, the flexible adhesive really did its job. It maintained the flexibility of this strap. The next step in the strap making process is to punch out the holes for the plates. If you remember, we have these post screws that are in the back of the plates, which will be punched out onto the leather strap. I find this easier to be done now that the snaps are still not installed. Now to align our plates onto the strap, I used this silver pen in order to trace out the post screws at the back and then press this onto the strap. The imprinted marks will serve as our guide on where to punch out our holes. Now, if you have a leather punching tool, it will be much easier. but since I don't have that, I will show you another process instead. For this, I am using a nail, a hammer, a wood piece which will serve as my buffer so that my surface won't be scratched. Carefully, we align the nail onto the center of the marking that we have created. And then, we hammer out the hole. A tip is to push the nail all the way through just to ensure that we have a clean hole. And we repeat this process for all the other holes. If you have noticed, I have used a small nail. It is easier to make a small hole and then make it larger than to punch out a larger hole immediately. To make the hole larger, I used this larger diameter screwdriver and twist it until it punches all the way through. And we repeat this process for all the other holes. Now I do this step just to make sure that the post actually fits into the hole. So I take a scrap post screw and insert it directly into the strap just to make sure that it fits. And we repeat this process for all the other holes. As you can see, because we have ensured that the holes fit the post screw, the plates go in much easier than when we would have not. Given the size of these sidebars, it could not accommodate the post screw, so I would have to glue this instead. And just to test its fit, we shake it a little bit and it's snug. Lastly, all that needs to be done now is to place the metal snaps onto the strap. To begin, we will mark out the snap hole centers onto the strap. The marking of the snap centers are important because it will determine if your snaps will work correctly. Now, following the steps we have done in punching out the holes for the plates, we'll use the similar steps in order to punch out the holes for the snaps. Again, we have to carefully align the nail onto the center of the snap hole. Since I am using a small diameter snaps, there is no need to enlarge the hole, so we can place the snaps directly after nailing them. Now is the time to clean up any markings on the strap. This will be harder to do once the snaps are on. Now these metal snaps have 4 parts to it. You have a cap and receiver, and you have the male end and another cap on the end. Now to fix this in place, we have these snap setting tools, one for a female end and one for the male end, and then we have the anvil which will act as a receiver. I am putting a microfiber cloth over my anvil just to prevent some scratches on my snap caps. Now, it is important before setting your snaps that your snaps are onto the right configuration. So you have to double check that. Now we place the snap cap onto the hole and then place the female end receiver on the other side. And then we will use this snap tool to set this in place. Now we just fix this tool into the center and we will tap it out with a hammer, tapping it in a circular motion to have an even set. Now to check if the fit is correct, we just try to twist it, and if it still moves, then it still needs to be hammered down a little bit more. This one still moves, so I need to hammer it a couple bit more. And you try to test it again, and this one is okay. Now for the other side, it is much easier than the female end. All you need to do is to place the cap on the other side, place the male end above it, and then use this snap setting tool and just hammer it in place. No need to do any circular motion, just tap it in place. For this side, you have to be careful with the amount of force that you're using. If you hammer it too much, there's a tendency that you will warp the leather strap. Now repeat the process for the rest of the snaps. After setting some of the snaps, don't forget to test it out first to ensure that you have a perfect fit. Now we just need to repeat the process over the remaining snaps. And we have this final product. A strap that looks like and functions like a strap. After completing all these steps, you have now completed your leather strap. Now, all that needs to be done is to secure your plates onto the strap by using these screws. As an added touch, I have also made a gold tip out of cardboard, and this is fitted at the end of the strap. And congratulations, you have just completed your mini belt project. Now this video ran a little bit longer than I have expected, but I hope you have learned a lot from this project. Basically, you can apply all these steps into a larger scale belt. You just have to make an adjustment with the amount of materials that you will be using. I hope that you have enjoyed this how to make video, and stay tuned for my upcoming video, which will be on how to make the WWE Spinner Belt Mini Edition. Now subscribe so that you could follow more of my upcoming projects. I hope you have enjoyed this video, And till next time.